Okay, here we go with the full formula, the full quadratic formula. And when we are solving a quadratic, the formula is something we can always go to. So I'm going to go ahead and anytime I'm using a formula, I should write out the formula for reference. So starting with any formula, I'm going to write the formula first before I plug into it. So same thing over here. And same thing over here. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We're ready to do the whole shebang. Now, before I plug in, I get ready with the parentheses to make sure I'm going to plug into the correct things. Now, I need a, b, and c. Let's go and see if it's equal to 0 already. Yes, check. So now I can go ahead and get a, b, c. A is equal to 5, b is equal to 6, and c is equal to 1. So now I'm taking those and I'm plugging those into the appropriate spots here in the formula. So b is 6, a is 5, and c is 1. And now we simplify. Negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 minus 20. Now it's negative 4 times 5 is 20 times 1. Negative 6 plus or minus root 16 is going to give us negative 6 plus or minus 4. The square root of 16 is just 4. So I'm going to keep going on these two solutions. My first solution is negative 6 plus 4 over 10, or negative 2/10, or negative 1/5. There's my first one. And then the second one is negative 6 minus 4, or negative 10/10, or negative 1. So my two real roots are negative 1 and negative 1/5. So what does that mean? It means I could have factored this because I got two integers as my two real roots. So keep that in mind. If I don't have a square root left in the answer, if it ends up with a perfect square as the discriminant, I could have factored it. All right, let's go up to this next one. And let's plug in here with parentheses. All right, this one, notice that it's equal to 3 instead of being equal to 0. So I just need to rewrite it as minus 3 equals 0. We need to subtract 3 from both sides to get that over there. So my A is 2, my B is negative 4, and my C is negative 3. So let's go plug in the appropriate numbers. Negative, negative 4. Negative 4 squared. 4 times 2 times negative 3 all over 2 times 2. So the front becomes 4 and the bottom becomes 4. And then negative 4 squared is 16. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times negative 3 is positive 24. Now, when do I split this up? I split this up when it looks like this is going to be able to reduce nicely. So 4 over 4, do you see how that's going to become 1? And then over here, this is going to be root 40 over 4. So we have to go off to the side and simplify the root 40. Do you see how it's going to be root 4 times root 10, or 2 root 10? So I'm going to simplify this further and get 1 plus or minus 2 root 10 over 4, 1 plus or minus root 10 over 2. There's my two real roots. Why is it two roots? Because of that plus or minus, there's two things going on there. Last but not least, Get the parentheses ready for plug-in. And here I'm plugging in A. Notice it's already equal to 0. A is equal to 5, B is equal to 2, and C is equal to 1. So B is 2, B squared is 2 squared, 4 times 5 times 1, all over 2 times 5. So I get a negative 2 at the front, a 10 at the bottom. I've got 4, and this is going to be another minus 20 because of negative 4 times 5. Negative 2 plus or minus square root of negative 16 over 10. Now I've got a negative discriminant. That means I have 2 non-real roots. I've got 2 imaginary roots. So when I've got a root negative 16, the square root of 16 is just 4, and the square root of negative 1 is I. So negative 2 plus or minus 4i over 10. And if I want to split this up, negative 2/10 plus or minus 4i over 10 reduces down to negative 1/5 plus or minus 2i over 5. Ooh, there's the whole shebang. There's my 2 non-real roots. 2 non-real roots. I feel like going back a second on this one, like you're all going to need it. Let me show you one more time what happened here. Okay, so was everybody okay up until the negative 16 as the discriminant? So we immediately are noticing that we're going to be getting 2 non-real roots, 2 imaginary roots. So the square root of negative 16 is the square root of negative 1 times the positive square root of 16, or 4i. So negative 2 plus or minus 4i over 10 can now be split up into 2 parts. As negative 2/10 plus or minus 4i over 10, or negative 1/5 plus or minus 2i over 5. Notice how that fully reduced down at the very end.